The ethos of blockchain is to be decentralized. And so Pocket is the decentralized solution for this. And it's much more secure, much more scalable.
Welcome to Profit to the People, the official podcast of Republic, where we believe you have the power to invest in the future you believe in. I'm your host, Lisa Carmen Wang, and I'll be taking you behind the scenes to meet the team, the founders, and the investors in our community who share their insights on the future of investing and how they're bringing profit back to the people. To learn how you can invest, head over to republic.co and follow us on all socials at Join Republic and at Lisa Carmen Wang. Today, I'm here with an all-star lineup. I'm here with Michael O'Rourke. He's the CEO and co-founder of Pocket Network, Inc. Omer Ozden. He's the CEO and founder of RockTree Capital. And Alex Yee. He's the managing director at Republic Crypto. And today we'll be talking about the paradigm shift that's happening in Web3 and how you can participate in the global expansion. So to start us off, Michael, can you tell us about how you got into this space, what you're building at Pocket Network, and how this is really revolutionizing Web3?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lisa. Super excited to be chatting with everyone here. My name is Michael, and I there's a couple things that got me into Bitcoin back in 2013 when I first bought it on Coinbase. One, I'm from the Caribbean. I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I'd sent money to my family several times using Western Union. And for those of you who are international, you've probably felt that pain at some point or another. There's really three things. That being the first one. The second one being, I played a lot of video games growing up, namely RuneScape, World of Warcraft, a lot of RPGs and this sort of thing. And that really got me first accustomed to kind of digital worlds and sending value and this sort of thing. In fact, I remember selling my World of Warcraft account for $300 on eBay at one point. So I kind of had an idea and already understanding of kind of these digital things having value. And thirdly, I worked in a credit union, or a couple of credit unions here in Tampa, where I live today, selling loans, so credit cards, car loans, and this sort of thing. And I'd seen thousands of credit reports over the couple of years that I worked at these credit unions. And really, I mean, if there's anything that radicalized me, it was that kind of got me ready for Web3 and kind of just Bitcoin generally, just because you see so many people who are in this really negative cycle in kind of the legacy financial system. And, having been someone who has been in that cycle growing up in some form, in some ways, it's just a really hard thing to get out of. And when I first read about Bitcoin in 2013, it was in a Wired article. It was about the Silk Road at the time. And it kind of just got me interested. I ended up on the subreddit for Bitcoin. And, I want to say 3, 4, 5 months later, I ended up buying it. And from there on, I mean, I just really got super excited and obsessed with the technology. I mean, I remember watching Vitalik announce Ethereum at the Bitcoin mining conference about 4 hours south of where I live, and just started to go to conferences and started to get really excited about the community and just what people were building and this sort of thing. And it wasn't until 2016. In fact, side note, actually, when I watched Vitalik announce that, I was like, oh, this is vaporware. I don't think Ethereum is going to be anything. I was really into Bitcoin at the time. And it wasn't until I became a software developer and felt some other pain, which I can touch on later. But as a software developer, primarily as an iOS developer, that I deployed my first smart contract on Ethereum in late 2016. And that is just one of those moments, kind of like me sending Bitcoin to my cousins when I first discovered. I was like, oh, here's 0.1 BTC when it's like $200 or something like that. Just be able to show them, hey, I can do this, right? Deploying my first smart contract on Ethereum was kind of a similar moment for me, because when you can deploy some software and know it can't be changed, it's really kind of a mind-blowing thing, especially as a software developer when, Google changes their API and completely cuts your business's legs, right from under you, right? As an example. And just to know that you can just deploy this thing and it'll just work, assuming there's no bugs, of course, is just a really mind-blowing thing. And through that process is kind of how I stumbled across Pocket with my co-founders. We had actually tried to build something else called Telcoin. I had been traveling quite a bit at the time, and we had this idea of being able to transfer cell data across different providers and this sort of thing. Realized at the time that was the technology really wasn't there for that to work. But in that process, we really kind of stumbled across Pocket and got really excited about it. We had been deploying our smart contracts, playing around really on some other infrastructure providers. And as 2017 rolled along, we really saw kind of the excitement and the use that every app that was being built on Ethereum with these infrastructure providers, one in particular called Infura. And to Infura's credit, I mean, they really were a massive reason why why Ethereum succeeded back then, because every ICO, CryptoKitties, EtherDelta, all these dApps that all of us used back then didn't crash because of this infrastructure. And we kind of really just saw the importance of that infrastructure over 2017. And we're like, okay, this seems really important. At the time, something like 80-90% of all traffic was going through one single infrastructure provider. So you kind of have this world where we have these decentralized blockchains, but you kind of have these bottlenecks that are kind of accumulating on top of these decentralized blockchains. So we started thinking about what we could build to help solve that problem. And in the end, we came up with Pocket Network, which is really, you can think of as a decentralized cloud where we have a two-sided marketplace where people are incentivized to provide data for applications effectively. So you can think of us as a bit of a middleware in that respect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that background. I think the way that we describe Pocket is Amazon Web Services of Web3. So you're building these bridges to allow for data to flow seamlessly. And so we'll dive a bit more into some of that infrastructure and where you guys are headed. But now I want to give a moment to Omer to talk about what you do at RockTree. You also have a really interesting story about how you got involved in the space, and in particular, how you've gotten involved in the space in Asia and Greater China.
Thanks, Lisa. And thank you to you and Alex and Republic for having us here. So we're a fund, but we're very active. You can say we take a merchant banking model for projects that are at the nexus of Greater China and North America, but really it's an expansion between West and East Asia and EU, North America. I first went out to China 30 years ago. My friends had a computer company there and I started working there. But within my first few days, I landed and I could kind of, like, I felt I had landed on the set of Blade Runner. It was, high tech, fast paced, high chaos. And so I decided, okay, I better learn Mandarin. I kind of got a view of what the next 30, 40, 50 years of the planet would be like. And eventually I moved up to Beijing, started working with these three entrepreneurs who eventually became very famous. And that was in Zhongguancun, which is the Silicon Valley of China. And it was when Zhongguancun was still dirt roads. So this is the late 90s, we're doing internet startups. And I was still a student. I was going back and forth between Beijing and law school and going back and forth. And then eventually I joined a law firm and we did deals such as Baidu, Alibaba, NetEase. We did the IPOs, the VC, and we didn't really know what we were doing then, but we were opening up China's internet sector, because before we created these structures that before then, internet was mostly restricted to and illegal for foreign investment. It was highly restricted space. The government didn't quite get it at that point, but they did, and they knew it was important. And eventually, from the internet, I just decided to set up my own fund, my own shop, and start doing deals where we took a very active role in the project. So if it's a Chinese company that we're investing into, we help them go international. For example, we are the founding investors in China's version of WeWork, which is called UCommune, became the second largest co-working company in the world. We help them expand globally, and also for top Western projects that are going into the Asia. and want to scale there, because a lot of times it's a black box for Western projects. And so the founders that brought me to China originally went on to be the top angel investors in China, called Genfund, Zhenge Jijin, in Beijing. And so we started co-investing in mobile technology and other areas. But then they went into crypto first. And then we started also doing blockchain and crypto deals. This was approximately 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And we love, what we love to do is to unite markets and bring the best of all worlds, particularly where groups have difficulty working together. That really juices me. And we love to help build projects, add value added to our investment, where we're helping projects scale, accelerate, develop community on a global scale. And so Asia is, 40% of the global crypto market. And so it's really important for projects like Pocket and others to scale up there and be as local as they can.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll definitely talk a bit more about, as you mentioned, that black box, because it is such a big part of the ecosystem. And so, if companies aren't there, it's really hard to grow to the scale they need, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. And then Alex, Managing Director at Republic Crypto. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into the space and what you see as the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. I'm glad to be finally on your podcast. Myself, I started off, as an aspiring academic. I studied economics at the University of Chicago, and I thought to myself, hey, I would love to push the envelope in a lot of new emerging research in the space. It became very clear to me that pure academia would have been incredibly taxing on my mental health and not maybe the best use of my time. And so when I was presented with crypto in 2017 at a traditional venture capital firm, I thought to myself, okay, maybe this is something where I can fit in a world where nobody is really yet an expert and really push the boundaries in this space where very little has been sort of standardized. After taking some years in traditional venture capital, Republic was actually a portfolio company of the last fund I was an associate at. And it became very clear to Kendrick, the CEO, and I that my destiny was with Republic and with the crypto arm. So was originally brought on to help design the economics for the Republic Note, which is Republic's own way of distributing its success to our community across the world. And then shortly after, helped to build out the version of Republic Crypto you have today, where we work with companies from seed all the way to liquidity with a token sale platform, growth marketing arm, research team, and more. And I'm proud to be leading our early stage practice where Michael and I originally got in touch back in, I want to say October or November of 2020. And we couldn't be more proud and more elated to see how far the company has come, and obviously extremely excited for the recent growth initiatives that RockTree will be spearheading in Greater China. So that's a little bit about me and how this all ties in.
Awesome. So let's talk about Pocket and how you guys are really creating a paradigm shift. I'd love to hear from Michael and then also from Alex and Omer about what really caught your eye about what they're doing.
Yeah, man, Alex, so we've only been working together for a little bit over a year. It feels a lot longer than that. So to take a step back, I alluded to some challenges once I became a software developer, and I just want to set some context here as to why Pocket's important in this respect. I worked with Google APIs, Twitter APIs, Facebook APIs, and several times throughout my kind of iOS development career, they'd change something without telling you, and we would scramble to fix it or to change according to the new rules. that they had provided. And this is really, really important in Web3, and I think a big reason why things why things are moving in the direction that they are. And in this respect, we see kind of this new internet being built in many ways, where we've got kind of really finally 30, 40 years later, really clear lines that are being demarcated with blockchains by having for the first time something that as a source of truth, I can say this digital thing is mine and no one else's, right? As a result, we're building these kind of almost digital jurisdictions. And it doesn't really make sense to have kind of like a base layer that is really truly decentralized, but then can be co-opted or taken control of by kind of the traditional world. Because frankly, the internet has really changed our lives over the last 20, 30 years. But really the infrastructure that we use and live on today, every day, is really based off the last 100, 200 years, right? So in many respects, Pocket is really a part of building this new internet by avoiding kind of the same, really learning from a lot of the best things of the last, say 100, 200 years, but also learning from the mistakes that I think that many of us think have been made in that respect. So, Pocket is a part of this kind of new Web3 stack. And you kind of have layer one blockchains like Pocket, where developers are going to be able to take, almost like at a store and pick what they'd like in terms of what technologies they want to use. But instead of kind of traditional SaaS businesses, you pick analytics, you pick Twilio, you'll pick, whatever social media, login, authentication. The new version of that will be a new Web3 stack that's being built. And what's really important about this is that it's not decentralized for decentralized sake. There are important benefits and really trade-offs today that I think will improve over time. But in our case specifically, we're significantly cheaper and much more reliable than kind of traditional infrastructure providers, let's call it. And as a primitive, Pocket, really all we do is incentivize people to run full nodes. And in the end, if you are looking at your balance on your wallet, you're doing a transaction on Uniswap or SushiSwap, or really, browsing any Web3 application, that data has to come from somewhere. And because of the nature of Web3 and crypto, in this case, instead of having one single siloed database, you've got thousands of people running these nodes that are effectively replicated databases. And really what Pocket does is provide a really thin and seamless layer for developers to build on top of as a part of this kind of new Web3 stack that's being built. And we're part of a big cohort of different types of protocols, whether it's smart contract blockchains, whether it's storage like Arweave or Filecoin or SIA or Storj, or even privacy with protocols like NIM. There's a whole host of different kinds of middleware protocols that are being built to kind of provide this new internet, if you will.
Got it. So when you talk about this reliability and all the nodes, and I mean, I think from what I understand, a big part of it is that it allows it so that it's more scalable, it's more secure. So if something goes down, like if AWS goes down, everything gets disrupted. But with Pocket, that's not the case, correct?
Yeah, AWS actually went down over the weekend, and quite a few Web3 applications went down as a result. Because of Pocket, we've got, I want to say it's probably 70, 80% of all the nodes in our network running in the cloud, but across 15 to 20 plus clouds across the world. In fact, we're across 30 countries today. And if Adapt were using Pocket instead, they wouldn't have necessarily gone down as a result. And that's kind of the beauty of kind of these unstoppable blockchains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is things keep working if it's actually decentralized.
Yeah. And so you're in 30 countries now, you're expanding, and Omer, you're partnering with them to grow their Asian presence. So tell me about what you saw in Pocket. Why is this something that could become a decacorn? That's your expertise, taking crypto companies, turning them into decacorns. First of all, what's a decacorn? Let's give that definition. And then how are you thinking about the expansion?
Okay, so decacorn is a term that we have in China, 市角兽, which means projects that have 10 billion market cap or above on a fully diluted basis. It's, we've built unicorns, but they're kind of boring now. Like, we're looking for the future decacorns to help. And I think like what we provide is we become the Asian arm for a project. I mean, everybody in the market has money. So when you look to get investment, you should be getting something more than just money. And what we like to provide is a partnership. We become the Asian arm and very strategic. And so becomes like a network effect. You're already big in the West, you become big in Asia, then it reverberates off the West and Asia again. And then projects that might have hit 1 or 2 billion market cap soon find themselves, because of that presence, because they're so localized and have so much support, they become a decacorn. And that's really our mission, to find those that we can really partner with. And some of the things that we were looking for, which we do look for, first of all, we had done a project, we had invested in a project called The Graph. And one thing that we noticed with The Graph, which is also middleware, is that the on-chain metrics were highly scalable, and investors and purchasers and other community were looking for this. And I want to just take some time to explain this to your audience, because I know some of your audience is like more familiar with equities. Okay. And I want to put that into the crypto context. So, projects 4 or 5 years ago were all about speculation. It was just like the internet in the 90s. You come with a PowerPoint, a concept, and you say, we're going to be doing this 4 or 5 years later. We're going to make this money. And then you'd get like funding, and maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. But now today, what we've noticed at RockTree is that the top projects have to be performing today. And that is not based on a 10K or a 10Q, something that accountants verified. It's on-chain metrics. So we have a number of projects, particularly in DeFi, that we went into, that we helped, that you can see on-chain what they're doing. And so we talked to one of investors that we really like, that we trust. And we said, this is the type of project we're looking for. Is there anything that's just going to go off the charts, scalable, on-chain metrics? And they said, okay, there's a project called Pocket Network. Let me introduce you to them. They're from Greece. I invited them to Tulum to visit me, where I was at the time. And just like lucky for us, when they made that introduction, when they were in Tulum, Michael just happened to be like about 4 hours away in a city called Merida on holidays. And so we said, hey, let's sit down and talk. We had some mezcal. We met at a sort of neutral site in Playa del Carmen. We had some mezcal, and that leads me to the second most important thing that we look for. Actually, this is the most important thing. We learned this from Gen Fund, is that we look for the EQ of the team. It's the team that matters. Everybody, to just get through the gateway, has to have good tech. Okay, business model, great. But it's the team. So we spent a lot of time, Michael, you notice, we spent a lot of time together, having drinks, food, talking, and that's, in some ways, that's a very Chinese way of investing, because you have to have an interpersonal relationship. But it's also important for us because we're putting our reputation on the line. We want to make sure that the team is great. And just from our perspective, we love the team at Pocket. I mean, they're amazing. You're so good to work with. And we have a saying in China for RockTree is like, if you have a bad team if you have a good team, let's say you have a good team that you invested into, when times are bad, when times are good, all the times are good. But if you have a bad team, when times are bad, things go bad. But when things go good, things get even worse with a bad team. And we've seen that in crypto, and it's just not something we're interested in. We want long-term vision, builders, high EQ, easy to work with. And we definitely have that with Pocket. So I think those two things really brought us together. But those metrics for your audience are really important. I'd like to touch upon that. You can now read on-chain data for a lot of these projects, and Pocket is crushing it. Like it's a gem that's being discovered under this rock, because there hasn't been that much activity related to marketing, going out to different types of investors, different geographies until recently. And it's expanded so much. You can see some of the metrics that Michael talked about, 30 different countries. I think you're up to 1,500 nodes. But like on-chain, you can also see the revenues. They are now monthly doing $29 million of revenues that can be verified. You don't need a Big Four auditor. You don't need to get a quarterly report filed with the SEC that may be correct or not. You've got it real-time Web3 that is immutable and fully transparent 24/7. $29 million a month growing at like, I don't know what it is, like 300% per month, 200% per month. I mean, project that out. This is a decacorn from our perspective. And so, there's other metrics. I think it's like 3.8 billion relays per month. I mean, those have gone up from when we first started talking. So for those guys who are into crypto, these are new concepts. For those guys who are into equities, like you have to look at the numbers, you have to look at the earnings, you have to look at these things. And with blockchain, you get it real time. It's a game changer.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great context. And I think really emphasizing that transparency part and that it's immutable. Like you can really see it and there's no hiding it. Alex, I'm curious from the Republic standpoint, why did you guys choose to partner with Pocket?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Omer covered a lot of, the same sentiments that, we had for Michael and the team. And it's really a lot of it centered around, there's a lot of context you can analyze, but ultimately the team walks the walk. And in that regard, what we were most impressed by in the early days when we were first talking was the team's unique and very open-minded approach to building out an economy for the Pocket token that would seamlessly fit an ever-scaling infrastructure play. Us at Republic Crypto are very, very nerdy, and we're always looking into ways to innovate, especially this sort of, I would consider sometimes outdated model of fully capped tokens and relying on scarcity to drive the price per token in these markets. Whereas for Pocket, we, as an early contributor and something that we continue to iterate on, answering questions like, oh, how do we best promote early pioneers of this of this infrastructure to reward those folks? And in the future, how might we take some recirculated capital and manage it in a way with the network, providing incentives to node runners, applications to properly use the product for the long term. I think naturally that initial curiosity and demonstration that they were willing to build and showing that as they've grown is what got us in the first place and continues to reaffirm our confidence in the network. Because ultimately, really not really talked about an overly simplistic way to think about, a lot of the early stage bets you make is that, regardless of tech, like Omer said, we can raise the bars as high as we want. But if you have a founder who you think has a risk of giving this all up, then it's game over. And so with the Pocket team, we saw very much an unhindered passion for this problem. And we knew with very high confidence that it would be something that they would be sticking with for the long run and become icons for in this way.
And Lisa, I just want to make a comment, with what Alex is saying, like it's been really a treat to work with Republic. Like I told you about RockTree's ethos, which is, money is easy to get to. You have to provide a lot of, I think, much more value, strategic value. And you guys, Alex, you guys have been amazing at just providing your resources, your networks. And that really, fits our ethos and being great to work with. So yeah, thanks for that. Obviously,
we will conquer the hemispheres together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So on that note of conquering the hemispheres. Let's talk about expansion now. What does that look like from the team perspective? What are you guys working on? What are some of the challenges or things that you're most excited about?
Yeah, so we're primarily, 60% of our company is Latin American, right? So we're very comfortable in the kind of Americas, let's call it, space. Even South America, we feel pretty comfortable in at this point. And at this point, also through our process, we became friends and traveled across the world, primarily Europe, the Americas, and we feel pretty comfortable, kind of talking that language, if you will, quite literally, actually, in that respect. And for us, and Omer alluded to this earlier, but crypto really is a global, crypto Web3 really is a global industry at this point. And for us to be able to have the opportunity to go into Asia and Greater China is just extremely exciting for us, to be completely honest. For me personally, it's always been a black box. In fact, I'm, prepping myself to start to at least try to learn some Mandarin and figure some things out there, just because, this world is I expect myself to be traveling all across this world, speaking with people from all over at this point, and it's really, as Omer said, it's really a massive part of crypto at this point. So for us to be able to have that opportunity to expand and to really have some really trusted investors and advisors and people who really know that area is just incredibly exciting and invaluable for us, frankly.
And what are some of those challenges? And maybe, Omer, you can expand on this a bit, that companies that are trying to expand into Asia, into Greater China, what are some things, unexpected challenges or risks that they don't necessarily take into account that very well?
There's so many that, I think Asia, and particularly some markets like Greater China and so forth, can be like a bit of a black box for Westerners and particularly Americans. But it's such a vast opportunity. And so trust is a really key factor. First of all, in Asia, a lot of Asian community is just tired of getting ripped off by scam projects from the West. I mean, they exist, right? Like, let's not pretend they don't. And so when we can bring something that we've done due diligence on, and we've spent time, like I said, spending time with the founders and looking at the tech, but the business model and so forth. And then guys are like, who know us because we're grassroots in crypto in China. Like, we've been there through the good times and bad times. I mean, predating crypto, like even Web 1, helping open up the internet. Guys trust us and we trust them, and we owe it to them to provide, what we think are the best from the West. And so that's really critical. And so I think that gets a big response in certain markets in Asia, where we've been working with these communities for years, if not even decades in some cases. And the reverse is true too. A lot of Western projects, like, who do you trust in Asia? There's all these guys saying, oh, we're great at this, we're great at that. They might be embellishing or whatever. You don't know who they are. And really, unless you've been there for years and been in the trenches through good times and bad times, you got to make sure you're working with the right people. And so we kind of do our best to eliminate that risk and really make sure we're working with the top guys. Top guys, they're not there for a fee. Top guys are not, trying to meet other people. They know who they are. We know who they are. We know who we are. And so guys who come in, they invest, they co-invest, and they help prop up the project. That's what we build. We build an army in Asia of people, good groups that have their own different skill sets, their own different resources, but they're vested in the growth of the project. And so everybody works together. And that's really the definition of a utility token. I mean, you're building an ecosystem, and the value of the network increases because you're decentralized in Asia. You have more developers in Asia. You have exchanges, investors, retail, everything that comes with what you need to be a full scale global protocol. That's what we like to deliver. And I can't say it's easy for us, but we do it a lot. And I can't say it's an easy thing generally to do because it's a different cross-border market.
If I could add that to some of the challenges. I mean, I'm Dominican, right? I could go visit my family, Dominican Republic, say, "Que lo que? How's it going?" And immediately the cultural context changes, right? And understanding how to speak. Omer keeps talking about localization. Is understanding how to communicate at an individual cultural level is something that unabashedly, we're not going to know everything, right? At all, right? So having people that we know, that we trust, as Omer was saying, who really understand the cultural context of how to communicate, design, whatever it might be, in this specific, localized area, is just massively important for us in that respect, and that goes across the world. It's not just Greater China. I mean, that goes Korea, South America, Europe, all over. And I'd say that's probably for us, the biggest benefit is really understanding how to communicate. Okay, don't just take, Google Translate and take your text and put it here, right? Like, how do you really actually communicate in a localized way? And for me, that's just really big for us. So,
yeah, and with blockchain, I think something that I've noticed, like with Internet Web 1, I noticed it, and more so with blockchain, time is accelerated. It's kind of like Einstein's theory of relativity, like time moves way faster. So in other industries, you may have 10 years to like kind of get localized and scale up. And Michael can go learn Mandarin, and 3 years later, he can like maybe, say some things on a podcast. We don't have time for that. Like, we have to scale up right now. So hit the ground running, and that's really important.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that to tack on some additional context and I think nuance to the localization idea is that it's not just pure language, right? As you explore the different markets and economies across the world, you're addressing naturally different needs. And here's the thing about Pocket that really allows for this to take off. The value proposition for the application or the developer's standpoint is very crystal clear on a mathematical basis, right? Which we can think of as a sort of logical universal idea. You're going to be paying less money. In fact, your cost basis will be going to zero over time, more or less, if you're especially an early adopter of Pocket Network. And that combined with the fact that you're pretty much guaranteed no downtime as you run your application is a no-brainer sort of sell, at least to myself in English. And what we sometimes lack in our own individual sphere of understanding is how we not only tap into, yes, speaking the language, but it's tapping into different cultural values, different market conditions that these people live in, whether that be developers in the Balkans or people who are really battling with geopolitical instability in South America, or say running lots of great dApps in China, but maybe don't have all the plugs into the best infrastructure yet. Everyone's got different needs alongside different language. And so that compounds to requiring, partners like Omer and RockTree to really have a grasp of and to be fully literate in that sense and fluent in that language.
Yeah. And just to add to that, talking about the title of this podcast, Profit to the People, we Alex was talking a little bit about the demand side of Pocket, but on the supply side of Pocket, we have people running nodes all around the world, from Chile to Argentina to Colombia and all over, right? And to be able to give access to Web3 for people in a different way, not just, hey, I'm going to spend $200 on gas fees and try to participate in this DeFi app, but really provide this kind of core infrastructure. Is a really massive opportunity that's, anyone can participate, which is frankly really exciting.
I have a question for Michael, actually. Do you see in the future a world where pretty much everyone and even their moms and grandmas can run Pocket nodes on Raspberry Pis or something in the future to that degree?
Yeah. I think having these boxes, very much like we have Wi-Fi routers in our homes today, that are effectively participating in Web3 in some form or fashion, allowing us to access Web3 in full nodes, or in Pocket's case with full nodes, but it really could be anything. In this respect, I definitely see that as a future. At this point, I think it's inevitable. I think there's a ton of opportunity in people to kind of build their own startups on top of protocols like Pocket in this respect, combining Pocket and Arweave and, Handshake and whatever it might be, to kind of allow people to access this Web3 stack while still, making money, which is, part of this kind of incentive and coordination layer of this new internet, right? Which is, frankly, just, again, so exciting. We're so early still, but just the fact that we're having, have the opportunity to, collectively incentivize people to do something across a global scale, no matter where you are, who you're from, or anything like that, is just one of the really, world-changing things about Web3. That's just, it's just beyond exciting.
So if we take
Lisa,
it down, yeah.
I wanted to you said something earlier about comparing Pocket to, describing it as
AWS.
AWS. Yeah. And so I think that's relevant here. So there's another project that we also did similar where the, Asia arm, we helped build them. It's called DYDX, which is a DeFi decentralized exchange, DEX for derivatives. And, their ethos is decentralization. However, what they're on top of was a layer 2 solution, Starkware, and then on top of that was AWS itself, which is not decentralized, it's centralized. And so guess what? AWS went down this week for 3 hours, 4 hours. And so, different types of projects, including that DeFi project I mentioned, went down. And that is not stable, it's not secure. It's because it's centralized. And so, the ethos of, as an investor, the ethos of blockchain is to be decentralized. And so Pocket is the decentralized solution for this. And it's much more secure, much more scalable. And let me just give you a metric related to that. I think AWS, I don't know the exact numbers, maybe Michael knows this better. I think AWS has like 40,000 employees. And Pocket is achieving something not on the same scale, but, a platform that provides similar service, but decentralized with like 35 to 40 employees. It's much frictionless, decentralized, highly scalable. Those are about the right numbers, right, Michael?
Yeah, I don't want to misquote the amount of employees that AWS has, but you nailed it with ours.
Yeah, and it's a scale that's just a matter of time before Pocket achieves to be at the same level of AWS.
And just to add to that a little bit, we're kind of seeing a kind of snapback in the world post-COVID, where we had super hyper efficient infrastructure across the world, supply chains, and so on and so forth, and now we're kind of seeing the world kind of start to get more resilient and across all respects. And I think blockchains are a huge part of that. You get a lot of people who say, oh, blockchains are inefficient, et cetera, et cetera. But are the benefits strong enough to kind of be okay with those trade-offs today? And what's really powerful about this technology is that the perceived non-benefits of, hey, this is inefficient, are just going to compound and get actually much, much better. Much in terms of much closer to where we are today, right? In terms of let's say cost, as an example, or whatever it might be across whatever supply chain or vertical it might be, and that's kind of one of the things that is really exciting about the timing of Pocket and just broadly, Web3, is that it's kind of part of this movement in the world of things being more reliable, maybe not as efficient, so things don't break But what's great about this technology is that it's going to get more efficient over time as well. And the trade-offs are such that today that it's even worth it today for many applications, and will continue to be.
So I wanted to just bring it down to earth in terms of the participation and how people can access it. So when we think about everyone being able to participate at some point, can you actually walk us through, and listeners, if they want to participate, what are the actual steps?
Yeah, it depends how you want to participate. There's a couple of ways. One, if you're a developer, you can very easily grab a Pocket endpoint and start building. Two, if you're using Web3, let's say you use MetaMask, you can also get Pocket endpoints. You can actually, through the MetaMask settings, as an example, you can actually switch your provider from kind of the default centralized to Pocket, actually quite easily. And in fact, in our own documentation, if you just look up MetaMask, it's actually super easy to do that. And we've got videos that kind of make that really clear for people. So that's kind of like on the, let's call it the demand side of the protocol. On the supply side of the protocol, you can run nodes. It's a very simple marketplace in this respect. So you acquire Pocket. If you have the chops to make your way around a terminal, there's actually some really nice tools, even with nice GUIs, to allow people who are not that technical to actually run their own nodes, which is really, really exciting. And additionally, we also have kind of what we call node providers, third-party services that can run the nodes for you as a fee. But basically, by providing that infrastructure and plugging into the network, you have the opportunity to do work for these applications. So, you yourself, would be using MetaMask, and you'd just be hitting random nodes around the world. Your own node, if you're providing work on the supply side, would mean that you're providing that information for different applications.
So, for anyone who's interested, try and follow Michael's steps, and then any questions you can always leave at the bottom in the comments. So we're at the top of the hour, but I wanted to finish off with a question for all three of you, and we'll go one by one. And that is, what does profit to the people mean to you?
I think it means giving everyone the equal opportunity to participate in all these amazing technologies, whether Web3 or not. So it's a equity of opportunity.
Omer?
So I come from Wall Street. I come from traditional finance. And one thing that I can say is that people need to be empowered more, common people, regular people. And, blockchain at the outset said, one of the goals was to democratize finance. And I think we achieved it over the past 18 months because, as you know, there's been 40% of global money supply printed in the past 18 months. And that's a tax on poor people. If people don't know the macroeconomic implications of that, it's a massive tax. And when I mean poor, I mean the 99%, not the 1%. It's not 60%, it's 99%. It's a tax on. And so 62 of the top billionaires in the United States, their net worth during that time increased by $1 trillion. And also about approximately 100 million people who have been participating in blockchain and crypto during the same time, their net worth increased by $1 trillion. And that's never happened in the history of the world. And that's something that I'm really happy to be a part of. It's a movement, it's power to the people, democratization of finance, and it's the direction we're going. And that's what we're bringing to the globe, whether it's in China or it's in France, or it's in Zimbabwe, America, wherever it is, that's happening.
You guys covered it all. It's very simple for me. When our economies grow, we should grow together, and it should not only be available to those in the 0.1, even 0.001% to benefit from. So it's as simple as that for me.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak to all three of you. And it's very clear that the partnership here is really strong as we grow and scale Pocket Network around the world, as you guys are all playing a part in helping expand Web3 globally. So I want to thank you for your work. Thank you for your wisdom and for everything that you've shared with our audience today. This podcast is provided for educational purposes only by Republic and Republic.co.
Nothing discussed should be construed as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. The views of the presenters may not be the views of Republic and its affiliates. Always consult with trusted professional advisors before making investments. Private investments are inherently illiquid and may result in a total loss. All rights reserved.